Well, you may be wondering right now, where is Matt? I mean, it's kind of obvious where I'm at. Yes, I'm in the woods, but if you know anything about me, you're probably wondering, has Matt finally snapped? Because many of you know my camping story. And yes, I said story. When I took my two sons with my wife Janie into the woods when they were only in diapers. And it ended in the morning with us picking ticks out of our legs for the next couple of hours. And we said, we're never doing that again. Well, here I am. And yes, my boys are with me again. And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that lately, God has been really stirring in my heart this need for adventure, this need to write a great story for myself and my boys. Maybe it's the fact we've been reading a lot of journeys into places like Hogwarts, or to the Middle Earth, with the Hobbit, or Lord of the Rings. Or maybe it's even just the Star Wars movies when you have like Luke Skywalker on Tatooine, staring off into the horizon, the twin suns, and just that calling to adventure. Well, welcome to the Discovery Base Camp here. We're gonna climb a mountain today here in the Dolly Sods of West Virginia. And my boys are with me. We're gonna go on this adventure, but it's not just about me wanting to create a great story for my boys. And for them to go, yeah, my dad, he took us on this great adventure before school started, whatever. It's also about me connecting with God the Father, that he wants to write a great story in me. You know, when he came to this earth in the form of Jesus, and Jesus said, hey, I've come so that you might have life, and life to the full. I think a lot of times we all need to check the diagnostics in our own life and say, you know, am I living a life of great adventure, or have I settled for so much less? And I don't know about you, but during this quarantine time, there's a lot of moments, a lot of days that just seem like a bit of a blur to me. They all seem to run together. And I'll be honest with you, I've not been living any kind of adventure. I've really settled, and I'm done with settling. We only have so many days on this earth. I only have so many days with my boys, and it's time to start living out that adventure. So you know what? We're here for 3 days, 2 nights. We're glad that you can come along as we go on this series, You Are Here, because that's what you're gonna be doing. That's what I'm doing. Where are you right now during this time of your life, in your relationship with God? Is it even existent? Is it stale? Are you thriving? And if so, man, share some of that with everybody else. But we're about to go on this climb, this mountain. We're here with many of the Discovery staff, my boys, our guide, Jason Adamson, Brittany Scott. We're having a great time out here in the woods already. We're not dead yet, but we're about to explore. So are you ready here for the series You Are Here? How about you guys? You guys ready? Woo! All right, let's do this. Well, welcome to Discovery Base Camp. We wanted to have a conversation with Todd and Kate as we start off this new series, You Are Here. So we wanted to invite you to come to the camping trip with us. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what, I've already told you, I'm not an experienced camper. I am very new to this. What about you guys?
I mean, I think this was a first for all of us, backpacking, at least.
I had never camped in the United States, but now I have.
Ooh, wait, where have you camped then?
Haiti and Kenya.
Well, that's pretty impressive, actually.
I know, thanks, but this isn't about me.
So we do have a very experienced guide along our way, Jason Adamson. We're so grateful for him. He's keeping us alive, and Todd with his 2-inch blade as well. So we've already had some pretty great adventures already on this trip, some pretty comical actually. One last night, Kate, will you talk about that?
Yeah, you could say, I mean, for any of you like expert backpackers out there, you know the whole idea of a bear bag, but if you haven't, you're new like us, a whole new thing. is you have to take all of your food, anything that will attract a bear, anything, you have to put it all in a bag and you have to hang it in a tree. But it can't just be any tree. It has to be a sturdy tree with a great limb that you can hang it kind of out that it won't completely break off the limb. So,
And 100 yards away from your
yes,
campsite.
100 yards away from your campsite. Yes,
From
to
your
be
campsite.
your
Yes, Lord,
campsite is the key. So we trek out. It's kind of getting a little late at night. We're like, okay, we can do this. How hard can this be? We're in the middle of the woods. There's like 600 trees around us. It took a while. Let's just say that. But once we finally get a tree, all of us, I think, took a shot at kind of catapulting this rope over this limb, and we finally got it. I would say,
You finally got it.
yes,
Yeah.
finally got it. That was pure luck. But I would say about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours of all of us trying to get these bear bags into these trees. We're like, got it, we're good to go.
We felt accomplished.
Awesome.
We
Yes.
felt like we were getting the hang of this, but then what happened in the morning?
Woke up in the morning, go get the bear bags, you gotta eat your breakfast, get the food down. And it was far enough away from us.
We were
But-
fine.
We were good. Bears weren't getting us, but it was rather close to some other campers.
Better them than us, right?
And they got up and left before
Or they were
before we
eaten.
woke up.
Or
One
they
of the
were
two.
eaten.
They weren't there in the morning. We don't know what happened.
Yeah.
We were experts.
We also we learned something on this trip that hikers give each other along the way are trail names. Todd, explain what a trail name is and how that
Yeah.
went for us.
A few years ago, my friend hiked the Appalachian Trail, and when he did that, he explained to me that, you don't really share your full identity, your real name with people on that, and so there's kind of a culture of hikers where you give each other names. It has to be given by somebody else, and a lot of times it's based on an experience you've had or like something you've done, and so it's based on an action. And so for some reason, even though mine should be like, Rambo or something sweet like that, my hiker name or my trail name was Hot Cereal, spelled Hauteserial, obviously. Hot Cereal. And then, of course, Kate's appropriate hiker name is Boots. You can ask her later what her real hiker name is. But
Well, should we show the reason why?
oh, we can go with that. Throw to the clip. Is that? Check this out. Watch this video.
And my trail name was Prison Matt.
Yeah, for
I don't
obvious
know- I still don't
reasons.
know exactly why. And
Well, what's the hardest thing about hiking to you, Matt?
the Dementors.
Yeah, right. That makes sense.
They suck your soul right out.
Yeah.
And my sons, Chase and Jackson, Chase was Splunky,
Splunky.
because he loves to cave and go into all these different tight spots.
And he's plucky and he's spunky.
he
It
is
all
both of those
one
things. He
word.
loved it. And then Jackson's was Sticks. And they loved having their trail named. I thought it was the coolest thing.
And Jackson was sticks because he carried a ton of sticks because we were trying to create a fire. So he carried them off the mountain in his backpack. And
He was
yeah,
intent on having a fire, but
very
we
passionate.
never could get a fire going. So
Yeah.
unfortunately.
If only we had a better guide,
All right.
Just kidding. I love you, Jason.
So listen, all right, we are 6 months into this pandemic, right? The quarantine life, a life that has disrupted us like none other. It's hard not to be, I think it's impossible not to be affected in some way. And while we're talking about this series, You Are Here, is for us, all of us, for the three of us, for you out there, to really identify and call out, this is where I am right now in my relationship with God. And we want gritty self-awareness, brutal honesty. Where are you? So let me ask you guys, let's lead the way. Where are you guys right now?
Yeah, I think this, just even like being on this trip has really brought to my mind of what has these past 5 months been leading up to now today? And I think it's been like a really good season of intentional building and preparation for what God has me in right now. And I think that is a sense of adventure, and that also goes along with being in the wilderness. And one thing I've just dove into this of what does that mean to be in the wilderness? What does it mean to take adventure? Because I think we take those journeys along our whole life. And in the Bible, when you think about the wilderness and you read about it in the scriptures, it is referred to as a desolate and a barren place. But when we think of adventures, we think of mountaintops, beautiful views, experiencing new things, taking great pictures. So how can they go hand in hand together? So that is what I am currently going through and experiencing, and I'm learning so much from that in this season. And it reminds me of Matthew 4:1-2, and it talks about where Jesus is being led by the Spirit into the wilderness. It literally says that in the scriptures, that he was led into the wilderness by the Spirit. And it says for 40 days and 40 nights he fasted and he became very hungry. And I think it's important for me to remember that Jesus was Jesus, but he also was fully man when he was led into the wilderness. So he was hungry, he was tired, he probably wasn't trying to get a bear bag in a tree, but
he didn't have any food.
Yeah, he didn't have any food. So he experienced all those humanly, just things that he just struggled with. And that, to me, that is like, I can follow that example as I'm going into this season of wilderness that is unknown. There's a lot of things I need to discover about it. So yeah, that's where I've been, and something that has helped me is reading through this devotional. And I encourage you to check out this devotional. It's called Fear Gone Wild. It's in the YouVersion Bible app, and she just talks about what does it mean to walk through the wilderness. And this is like, it looks very different in so many different seasons of your life. But I just want to read this one thing that she says that I thought was really powerful. It says, as we wander through our desolate places, we discover who we really are and how great our need for God really is. And I think that is what I'm discovering, is that the wilderness, it's not an optional season. It's actually an integral part of life, that we discover who God has made us to be. And just, we discover so many different seasons of adventure that he is wanting to take us on. So that is kind of the heart of where I am.
Love that. Todd, what about you? Where are you right now?
Yeah, I mean, when I think about this past season during the quarantine, especially the difficult parts of it, I feel like there's been kind of a low-grade anxiety that's just been persistent day after day. Maybe a little bit of anxiety, maybe a little bit of depression. Honestly, a lot of times it's a little bit of just like unknown, mixed up, confusing, tangled up emotions. And I feel like every time I've had the privilege of speaking at Discovery, I've kind of come back to a lot of this, just thinking through, how do I detangle my emotions? How do I understand my emotions? How do I understand what God is doing in me and what my human nature is kind of doing in the midst of it? And so these kind of amplified, intense feelings that kind of spill into every area. And so there's been really highs and some real lows with my marriage. There's been some just pressure with work. There's been just struggles throughout this season. And I've come over and over to realize that understanding your emotional barometer is super important. I was thinking a lot recently about just the idea of confession and a kind of admittance, like this kind of vague idea of just trying to get the truth out there and letting people know what you're really going through. I mean, in James it says confession leads to healing, and in Romans it says that we should evaluate ourselves with sober-mindedness. We should continually be evaluating where we're at. And like I got to speak about a few months ago now, when Jesus comes to this blind man named Bartimaeus, it's very obvious what he needs to everybody watching around them, and probably to my wife and to other people. It's obvious what I need. But Jesus has to go to him and say, what do you want me to do for you?
He was blind, right?
Yeah. He stumbles up. He's very clearly blind, and Jesus still says to him, what do you want me to do for you? And he has to come to kind of the realization, the clarity of understanding what's really going on in his life. And so he says, I want to see. And I think that's an integral part of his healing. In fact, Richard Rohr, he wrote a book called Breathing Underwater. It's taking the 12-step program that Alcoholics Anonymous take advantage of, incredible healing process that can apply to so many areas of life. He applies that across the board. And when he talks about admittance and acknowledging that you're powerless against your addictions, against your problems, against your emotions, whatever, he writes this: you cannot heal what you do not first acknowledge. And that key point has been something that I've continually been realizing and understanding, but also trying to work through. You have to figure out what is underlying your emotions, what are your emotions, what are you struggling with, where is this anxiety coming from, and just putting it out there so you can begin healing.
So I hear both of you talking about that, coming to that place of realization, calling out, this is where I'm at. That's a very powerful, powerful thing. It reminds me going where Jesus, when he would come across groups of people, he would basically tell them, just follow me. And there's one instance in Luke chapter 9, as they were walking along the road, a man said to him, I will follow you, Jesus, wherever you go. And Jesus replied, foxes have dens, birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. He said to another man, follow me. But he replied, Lord, first let me go and bury my father. And Jesus said to him, let the dead bury their own dead, but you go and proclaim the kingdom of God. And still another said, I will follow you, Lord, but first let me go back and say goodbye to my family. And Jesus replied, no one who puts a hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the service in the kingdom of God. And man, I think I see this happening a lot in our world today right now, where Jesus is saying, follow me, but we have all of these things that we are trying to escape our reality right now. We're going into all these different things, and we're saying, Jesus, yeah, I'll get around to you one day, but man, I really need to focus my life in these things right now because I need to escape all that's going on. What have you guys seen in those things?
Yeah, I mean, escape is a really great word, because you think about it, you think, I don't want to face any of this stuff, so I will go to Netflix, I'll go to Hulu, I'll go to anything that has a screen that can fill my time. And now it's shown that about 65% of parents admit that, like, yeah, I'm going to let my kid watch all the TV and movies that they want to help, you know, occupy their time. Or I even saw an article that said most people have given out all their accounts that are attached to their Netflix or their Hulu or whatever it may be, that it's like maxed out on sharing. Another thing I saw is Twitch, which is a gaming platform that has skyrocketed, and anything that has to do with sports, that's what this article said, has plummeted greatly. So obviously this isn't something we're probably surprised by during this time, is screen time has gone up dramatically.
Speaking of Netflix accounts, we're going to put Kate's password to her Netflix account in the chat right now, so you can take that and jump on one of her accounts. Is that cool?
Yeah, that's good.
I saw a lot of stuff about, you know, mental health and mental illness. I mean, I just talked a little bit about my own, but 41% of adults that were surveyed in June indicated some level of extreme or severe mental difficulty, mental health difficulty. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's gone up quite a bit. And so people are looking for ways to numb that. And so, you know, one of the most common and most accessible ways to do that is, of course, alcohol. Alcohol sales have gone through the roof. I mean, you guys probably remember back when everything shut down, as they were shutting down the liquor store, lines were out the door the last day. And then 2 weeks later, they opened up the website, and of course, almost immediately it crashed. People couldn't get in because so many people wanted that escape. So many people wanted to numb their feelings, numb their behavior. And of course, again, that's just surface level of what could happen in other ways too, whether it is those kind of acceptable ways of numbing it, or illicit drugs, or abusing pain medication. Things like that are happening all around that. And I know I've been tempted to do some of that stuff as well. But one of the key things that I think Jesus wants to teach us throughout a season like this is not to avoid the darkness, not to avoid the difficulty, not to avoid those emotions and those feelings. I was listening to John Maxwell, who coaches a ton of pastors. He's a Christian leader. He also coaches business leaders. Like, he was working with the second biggest tech company CEO recently. And he was talking about one of the most important things we can do right now is take a tour of the detour. This is a detour. This was never expected. This wasn't supposed to happen. When difficult things happen, when things get hard, we need to embrace the circumstances we're in. Of course you can distract sometimes. Of course you can escape sometimes. That's totally okay. But you can't do it all the time. You have to embrace the struggle that we're in. Otherwise, we're not going to come through to the other side. We're not going to learn what God has for us in the midst of this. We're not going to embrace what He's going to do inside of us. And I'm sure we'll talk more about that in just a moment. But one of the things I've seen from people, not just numbing the behaviors, but the other mistake I feel like a lot of us are making is to try to rush back to the old normal. We're trying to get back to the way things were with our kids in school, or the schedules we were a part of before all of this, the priorities we used to have, when this is such an incredible opportunity to reshape the way that we prioritize our lives, the way that we think about our schedules, to kind of cut the fat and the things that don't matter as much, and find real purpose and real opportunity within the things that really do matter. Instead of rushing back to what was old, instead of trying to escape and numb ourselves, maybe we should blaze a trail, forward. Take the tour of the detour. Go on the difficult path instead of trying to run back to the parking lot where your car is and go back home.
Yeah. So if Jesus is saying, follow me to you, are you saying right now, yes, Jesus, I'm going to follow you, but first, I need to make sure my kid's school year is going well, then I'll get around to it? Or my job, I need to make sure that's a little more secure, or my financial situation is a little bit more secure? Is He first? Where are you at in your relationship with God? So God created you for the adventure of a lifetime. He designed you to partner with Him to bring heaven here on earth. Heaven in your neighborhood, heaven in your workplace and your school, heaven in your family. 2,000 years ago, God emptied Himself into the person of Jesus Christ, who walked this earth and blazed the trail of this incredible journey for us. He showed us the way because He is the way. He walked up to people who had settled for so much less, people who were broken and set aside by the culture, and said 2 words that changed their lives forever. He said, follow me. And Jesus is saying those same 2 words to you today. He said, there are 2 paths. One that is wide, it's easy, it's what's normal, and everyone is on it. But it leads to destruction. But then He said, my path, it's narrow, it's challenging, but only a few find it. But it leads to life. It leads to real life. So where are you on this journey? Being able to identify where you are with Jesus on this journey with brutal honesty and gritty self-awareness is a powerful first step. So where are you? 5 years ago, Discovery adopted the map pin as our logo, and today we are refreshing it because that statement, you are here, is critical for all of our journeys of following Jesus. So when you see this logo now and in the future, we want you to think, where am I on this adventure? Am I settling? Am I embracing the immeasurably more that God wants for my life? Am I boldly following Jesus? Your mission is to accept Jesus' invitation, to follow Him on this adventure of a lifetime. And our mission at Discovery is to help equip you for the journey. Let's go together.
When you go on adventures like we did, you get an opportunity to kind of reconnect with people and sit down and have really meaningful conversations. And while we were there, I had one with one of the people on the trip, and they were talking about this really difficult season they had gone through, a really tragic moment in their life. And I asked them, if you knew then what you know now, would you do it again? And surprisingly, they said yes, because of the kind of person God had shaped them to become on the other side of it. And I know for me, when Sam and I a few years ago, we went through a really tragic, really difficult moment in our own lives, we read this book together called How to Survive a Shipwreck by a guy named Jonathan Martin. And throughout that book, it talks about this. How do you get through, kind of like a wilderness, but instead his motif was more of a shipwreck. How do you get through those really difficult seasons? And one of the lines that really stuck with me, it goes something like this. He says, almost nobody who survives a shipwreck, survives the wilderness, survives a difficult moment, would ever sign up to do it all over again a second time. Nobody would choose to lose the loved one all over again to the unexpected illness, or lose the job they trained for years to get, or lose the relationship they invested heart and soul into for half of their adult life. And yet repeatedly, I hear people say the same remarkable thing, that they also, under no circumstances, would choose to go back and be the person they were before. On the other side of those shipwrecks, there's a stronger, deeper, richer, more integrated life. And I think for many of us, if we choose to go on this journey, to fully engage it, to take the tour of the detour, if we really go down the path instead of running back to the parking lot, go on the adventure that's set before us in this really difficult season, I think we will be grateful for the ways that God's shaped us, the kinds of people we are on the other side of them. I know I'm already starting to feel that and see that in myself. And so there's 2 map pins you need to place. Where you're at, understanding exactly where you're at in the wilderness, on the map, on the journey, and also where you want to go, the destination, and start heading in that direction. Until you know where you're at, you can't head in the right direction. Until you know the direction, you can't start heading that direction. And so we want to link to a few simple diagnostic questions, some things you can ask yourself to sort of develop a better sense of where you're at and where you need to go. But maybe the most important question to start with goes back to the trail name idea. When you're on a trail and you do something, you get a name for it. So if somebody were going to give you a name based on your actions recently, what name would they give you? And think about that. Think about that from the perspective of your spouse. Think about that from the perspective of your kids, your coworkers, somebody in your neighborhood. Based on the actions that you've done this past week, what name would you get? Grumpy McGrumperson? Is that the name? Or like Irritated Annie, or Karen? Would it just be Karen? I don't know. What name would somebody give you, like a trail name, based on your actions from this past week?
So let me let you guys on a little secret first of all. Like, yes, a couple of weeks ago we went into the wilderness. We went and climbed a mountain in West Virginia. We hiked and camped out and did all that stuff. We got rained out the last day, and so a lot of the footage that we're doing now is also right here in the heart of Cranberry Township. Not exactly wilderness. You've got the AC units and cars right over here and things like that. But here's the point for that. When Jesus calls you to follow him, you don't have to go have the adventure of a lifetime being on a mountain and a trail. But the most important trail that you can blaze is following Jesus in your family, in your school, and in your workplace, and blazing that trail of following Jesus in your neighborhood. So here's the question we're asking all the way through the series. Where are you at in your relationship with Jesus? Let's get honest.